What was the message inside the locker room? Like, what were you guys talking about there after the game?
Yeah, I just think that we've had some hard injuries this year. We've had some different lineups and roster spots. And, to be frank, I don't think anyone else around the league thinks that we can do it anymore. But I think that our group does. And I think that we just have to get that confidence back. When we're clicking offensively, defensively, we're scary. And not a lot of teams can beat us, even with the roster that we have right now. And so for us, it's just remembering who we are. It's our identity. We got to get back to being dogs, got to get back to being aggressive, being on our front foot, and not allowing teams like this to come in here and outwork us.
The Indiana Fever didn't just lose a basketball game. They detonated their playoff hopes with coaching decisions so baffling, veterans are publicly questioning the strategy. When Sophie Cunningham slammed her team for losing their dog mentality after this 88-84 collapse to the league worst Mystics, she wasn't ranting, she was exposing a crisis. Right now, hit subscribe because what you'll learn about these controversial coaching choices might shock you.
Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our off.
We're dissecting every explosive moment. Washington's 22-7 run wasn't just a scoring burst. It was a forensic showcase of Indiana's self-destruction. Picture this, a playoff-bound team leading by 13 points against the league's worst squad, only to implode with 21 fouls that gifted Washington 26 free throws. But the real tragedy was how it happened. Defenders lost assignments like amateurs. Rotation stalled as if stuck in mud. Communication? Non-existent.
Playing for the Buckeyes. Here is the Buckeye product on a backdoor pass, but Mitchell lost the handle. Sutton thought about the three, steps in, Hull got a piece. Dolson has been wide open all possession, splashes home a three, and we are level at 47.
When Kikien, pronounced K-ken, muscle for offensive rebounds, Fever players watch instead of boxing out. When Sonia Citroën, launched momentum-killing threes, closeouts arrived a heartbeat too late. The Mystics' 52% shooting during that run wasn't skill. It was Indiana leaving lanes wide open. Even basic transition defense evaporated, allowing easy buckets off careless turnovers.
Bench, Indiana has 8 first-quarter bench points. That's typically been a strength when they're playing well, as Iriafen just bullies her way inside. Now Citroën being guarded by Lexi Hull. Hull goes over the screen, defends her really well. Citroën just has to fire it up, and a circus shot for Citroën.
This wasn't fatigue or bad luck. This was systemic failure, where players stopped trusting the scheme and coaches failed to reset them. The most damning evidence? Washington scored 14 fast break points during the collapse, all generated by Indiana's own sloppy passes and poor shot selection. For a team fighting for playoff positioning, these weren't mistakes. They were basketball malpractice.
Cunningham looking, finds Mitchell, launches a corner three, it won't go. Rebound Aiksler. And this young Washington Mystics group who continues to impress throughout this season. And Sidney Johnson in his first year comes up with a big win on the...
The real scandal wasn't on the court. It was on the bench. Chloe Bibby, CHLOHEBIHB, Indiana's second-best three-point shooter at 42%, never removed her warm-ups. Not for 1 second. While Indiana's offense choked on double teams and shot clock violations, Bibby watched as Coach White cited defensive matchup concerns. Yet here's the brutal irony. Washington still scored 42 points in the paint. The very defensive breakdowns White feared happened anyway, just without Bibby's floor spacing to counter them. Mystics defenders openly ignored perimeter threats, packing the paint to smother Kelsey Mitchell. The result? Mitchell faced 2 to 3 defenders on every drive, while open shooters waved frantically from the corners.
I think we over-dribbled at times. Our off-ball movement wasn't there. We did a lot of standing. It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey and just tried to watch her work. And that's not when we're at our best. I mean, yes, certainly we want to have the ball in our hands, but we've got to continue to get movement, with and without the basketball. It was getting stuck. I mean, we want to play 0.5 to 1 second basketball, and we weren't. And it's got to get moving.
Stats expose a disaster. Indiana attempted just 18 threes, their second lowest all season, while Washington shot 40% from deep. White later admitted the offense got stuck, a haunting admission when Bibby's gravity could have prevented it. Even more telling, in games where Bibby plays 15-plus minutes, Indiana averages 9.2 made threes. Tonight, 6. This wasn't strategy. It was coaching malpractice that handcuffed Mitchell and rewarded Washington's defensive gamble. When reporters pressed post-game, White vaguely referenced switch concerns.
Tonight, were there thoughts maybe plugging her in to try and spark the offense a little bit, or what was the decision behind not playing her tonight?
Yeah, there were some thoughts. I think that it matched up defensively more than anything with the way that we were going to try to play them, or in some of our switches and things like that. So that was mostly the reason.
And then just with the rotation, was it just those eight or seven that you ran with? Was it just they were flowing well and you wanted to just leave that going, or what was the thought there?
Yeah, I think some of it was defense. Being able to execute the type of defensive coverages that we wanted to have against this, the way that they play.
Yet Mystics guards blew past offenders all night. The proof was in the silence. Bibby's empty chair screamed louder than any excuse. Comment coach of White failed them, or roster, if injuries doomed Indiana. Your take fuels this debate. Sophie Cunningham's post-game mic drop exposed a locker room fault line. We got to get back to being dogs, she seethed, adding, teams shouldn't outwork us. Compare that to Coach White's detached analysis. We face adversity. It's an adjustment period. Cunningham called out specific cancers: over-dribbling, stagnant off-ball movement, lazy closeouts. White vaguely cited foul control and new players.
It was something like a 22-7 run, the end of the second, beginning of the third quarter. And those are hard to recover from when anytime really, but when you're missing pieces. And, we've got to make sure that we're sharper at times. We don't have the margin to have lulls within quarters. And then I believe they had something like 21 points from free throw line and turnovers of their 26 in the fourth. And, we control that, defending without fouling. We control that, taking care of the basketball, decision-making at times. And some of it's, playing some people out of position, and some of it's just not being, valuing the basketball in the way that we need to value it, being a little sloppy with it.
The disconnect? Astronomical. Players bled for this game. Aaliyah battled through triple teams for 20 points and 9 rebounds. Odyssey Sims, signed days earlier on a hardship deal, attacked the rim like her career depended on it, scoring 11 clutch points. Cunningham herself delivered signature hustle, stripping ball handlers, diving for loose balls, and igniting that electrifying steal-to-three sequence that briefly revived hope.
Had is Cunningham with a steal. Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in.
So they had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here. 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down. Now Sims launches ahead for Mitchell. What a pass by Odyssey Sims.
These weren't empty efforts. They were proof the roster had fight. Yet when Washington unleashed their 22-7 run, no strategic adjustment came. No timeout to reset, no rotation shakeup, just the same predictable sets while Mystics rookies ran riot. Cunningham's dog's comment wasn't criticism. It was a coded indictment of coaching paralysis. When players publicly demand accountability, while leaders offer therapist speak. That's how seasons unravel.
Why at the same time? Because I'm you and you're me. We switch bodies. Subs in the chat.
Stop accepting injuries as an alibi. Yes, Caitlin Clark's absence hurts, but Indiana still fielded 3 All-Stars, Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, plus a battle-tested veteran, Sims, against a 12-seed team starting 2 rookies. Boston dominated the paint with 20-9. Mitchell generated 23 points off her playmaking. Sims stabilized the backcourt with 0 turnovers. This wasn't a talent deficit. It was a deployment failure. White ran just 7 players despite having Bibby and sharpshooter Grace Berger available.
Just right now.
Here's Mitchell on the handoff, bounce pass. Boston one bounce and a left-handed finish. Here's Boston, the offensive rebound, flips inside to Howard, who lays it in.
You go step up screen, flare on the weak side. They had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here, 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down.
Worse, she played Lexi Hull 28 minutes despite her -15 plus-minus and 1 for 6 shooting. Meanwhile, Bibby, who torched Washington for 17 points in their last meeting, never saw the floor. The defensive liability excuse collapsed when Washington scored 26 points at the free throw line, many from guards blowing past exhausted starters. Consider this. Indiana's bench scored 19 points in the first half, and just 4 after halftime as fatigue set in. White's refusal to use her full roster directly enabled Washington's comeback.
Till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense.
When Mystics coach Sydney Johnson adjusted by unleashing rookie Kikien off the bench, White had no counter move. The result? Kikien's 18 points and 12 rebounds, mostly against gas offenders. Blaming injuries ignores the real issue. Coaching rigidity wasted available weapons. 7th place. Play-in tournament territory. That's the cold reality after this collapse, and Cunningham nailed it. We don't have margin for error, but the core issue isn't effort or injuries. It's leadership accountability. When Cunningham demands dog mentality, then White responds with adjustment periods. The message fractures. Players own their failures post-game. Mitchell admitted, "We got stagnant." Boston blamed sloppy passes. Yet White deflected abstractions, controlling the mental, learning from hard times. Not one concrete admission about her rotation freeze or timeout mismanagement during Washington's run. This pattern is lethal. Benching Bibby wasn't precaution. It was arrogance, assuming Indiana could win without adapting. Allowing a 22-7 run without a single timeout or substitution wasn't oversight. It's negligence. The numbers convict. Indiana is 2-9 in games decided by less than or equal to 5 points this season. Why? Because late-game coaching vanishes. When Mitchell drove into triple teams for the final shot, where was the play design? Where were the screens to free shooters? Just isolation hero ball, the exact stuck offense White condemned. If this continues, playoffs vanish. Cunningham's fury is a warning. Players won't tolerate wasted effort. Either coaches adapt immediately, or the front office must ask hard questions. The decision to bench Chloe Bibby wasn't just questionable. It symbolized a coaching philosophy prioritizing theoretical risks over tangible solutions. Bibby, shooting a blistering 42% from three-point range this season, sat idle while Indiana's offense crumbled into predictable isolation sets. Coach White's explanation? Defensive matchup concerns against a Mystics team ranked last in the league. Yet Washington still torched Indiana for 42 points in the paint and 26 free throws. The irony is crushing. White feared Bibby's defense might allow drives, but without her spacing, Mystics defenders packed the paint freely, smothering Kelsey Mitchell with double teams. Mitchell's 14 points and 9 assists masked a grim reality. She became Indiana's entire offense, exhausting herself against crowds while teammates stood motionless on the perimeter. When adjustments become excuses. Post-game, White's vague references to switch concerns and giving grace clashed violently with Sophie Cunningham's raw accountability. We let them outwork us. Cunningham didn't hide behind injuries or fatigue. She called out stagnant movement over dribbling and defensive apathy. Meanwhile, White's refusal to own her rotation freeze felt detached. Fans erupted online, comparing her rigidity to past failed regimes. Approaching Christy Side's levels of sucking, tweeted one, while others noted Bibby's height, 6 feet 1 inch, offer more defensive utility than the 5 feet 8 inches Mitchell, who played heavy minutes. This isn't hindsight coaching, it's basic roster math. With Caitlin Clark injured, Bibby's floor spacing was essential to punish Washington's aggressive paint collapses. Instead, Indiana shot just 7 out of 21 from deep, their second fewest attempts all season. Imagine this alternate ending. Bibby enters late, forces defenders to respect the arc, and unlocks driving lane for Mitchell or kickouts to Cunningham. Instead, the final minutes showcased Indiana's self-created nightmare. On the game's critical possession, Mitchell drove into 3 defenders because no spacing existed. Boston battled for offensive rebounds alone. Cunningham scrambled to cover defensive breakdowns, all while Bibby watched. White's defensive insurance policy. It surrendered 14 fourth-quarter free throws anyway. When reporters asked post-game about Bibby's absence, White doubled down. It was the matchup defensively, yet Washington's rookies, Citroën and Kikien, combined for 39 points largely against Indiana's switch-proof lineup. The very weaknesses White aimed to avoid materialized without Bibby's offensive upside to counterbalance them. Accountability or apology. The crossroads for Indiana. Stephanie White isn't wrong about Indiana's broader issues. 21 fouls, 13 second-half turnovers, and poor transition defense are player execution flaws. But coaching isn't just preparation, it's adaptation. Benching a 42% three-point shooter in a game where spacing evaporated isn't caution. It's coaching malpractice. Fans noticed. The Fever subreddit and X Twitter flooded with frustration. If Kelsey Mitchell could be on the floor, Bibby can too, argued one. Another slammed White for letting one of the worst teams dictate terms. This loss dropped Indiana to 7th place, dragging them toward play-in tournament peril. With Clark's return uncertain, White's choices now carry playoff stakes. Does she evolve? Or double down on a philosophy that sacrificed a winnable game? With 12 seconds left and Indiana down 2, Kelsey Mitchell took the inbound pass, her eyes scanning for options that didn't exist. No cutter flashing to the elbow. No screener freeing a shooter. Just 4 Fever players frozen beyond the arc, as Washington's defense swarmed like sharks smelling blood. Mitchell hesitated, a fatal pause, before driving left into a forest of limbs. Mystics guard Julie Van Loo slid over first, cutting off the baseline. Then 6 feet 5 inches center Stephanie Dolson abandoned Aaliyah Boston to help. Finally, wing Carly Samuelson rotated down from the weak side, forming a human wall. 3 defenders, 1 ball handler, 0 escape routes. Mitchell's contested flopper clanked off the back iron as Boston, fighting alone against 2 box outs, leaped desperately for a rebound that never came. This wasn't basketball. It was a staged execution. The tragedy? This was entirely preventable. All season, Chloe Bibby's mere presence on the floor forced defenders to stay glued to the three-point line. Her 42% shooting from deep created gravitational pull, opening lane for drives and kickouts. But with Bibby benched, Washington's defenders ignored perimeter threats. Cunningham stood wide open in the corner, waving furiously as Mitchell drove. Samuelson didn't even glance her way. Why bother? Cunningham shoots 31% from deep this season. Washington knew Indiana's only scoring threats were Mitchell attacking or Boston posting, so they packed the paint and dared anyone else to beat them. The result? Mitchell's drive success rate plummeted from 58% in the first half to 22% in the fourth quarter. Not because she fatigued, because the court shrunk around her. Cunningham's desperate scramble. Watch Sophie Cunningham during the sequence, a microcosm of Indiana's systemic failure. As Mitchell drives, Cunningham recognizes a trap and darts toward the wing, trying to create a passing outlet. Too late, the passing lane vanishes. She then sprints back on defense as Washington grabs a rebound, only to find Mystics rookie Sonia Citroën leaking out unchecked. Cunningham, already exhausted from playing 37 minutes, gives chase but can't close the gap. Citroën glides in for an uncontested layup that seals the game. Here's the brutal truth. Cunningham covered more ground in those 8 seconds than any Fever player because she was compensating for others' breakdowns. Her steal earlier in the quarter showcased what Indiana could be. Active hands, quick rotations, collective urgency. But without coaching adjustments, her heroics were band-aids on a hemorrhage. The rookie feast. Washington's rookies didn't win this game. Indiana handed it to them through unforced errors. Consider Kikien's backbreaking putback with 1:42 left. Dolson misses a hook shot. Kikien outmuscles Boston because no weak side help rotated. She scores while getting fouled by a late-arriving Mitchell. 3 failures in 1 play. Poor rebounding positioning, 0 help defense, and a frustrated foul. Kikien finished with 18 points, 12 coming directly off Indiana's mistakes. Citroën's dagger 2 minutes earlier generated when Fever defenders botched a simple switch, leaving 2 players chasing Van Loo while Citroën stood alone. These weren't sensational plays. They were rookie-level opportunities gifted by a veteran team that stopped communicating. Cunningham's post-game words cut deep because they acknowledged this. We let them outwork us. Not they were better. Not the refs screwed us. We let them. Accountability absent from the coaching staff. White's denial versus player reality. Contrast Cunningham's raw honesty with Stephanie White's post-game assessment. We need to value possessions better and defend without fouling. Generic. Evasive. Nowhere did she address. Why Bibby never played despite spacing crises. Why no timeout stopped Washington's 22-7 run. Why Mitchell ISO ball persisted when it clearly failed. Players visibly imploded during timeouts. Boston slamming a towel, Mitchell gesturing at miscutters. Yet White's clipboard remained unchanged. When reporters asked about Bibby, White deflected to defensive matchup concerns, ignoring that Mystics guard shot 60% in the paint against her preferred defenders. This isn't strategy, it's dogma. And in a must-win playoff chase, rigidity equals sabotage. The film doesn't lie. Rewatch the final 3 minutes, and you'll see. For consecutive possessions, ending with Mitchell 4 shots. 0 passes to Boston in the post during crunch time. 3 wide-open corner threes passed up by hesitant role players. Washington didn't unlock some genius scheme. They exploited predictable patterns, while Indiana's coaching staff watched passively. When Mystics coach Sidney Johnson subbed in sharpshooter Brittany Sykes for defense, White left gas starters in. When Johnson called a timeout after Cunningham's steal to disrupt momentum, White stayed silent during Indiana's surge. Coaching isn't just drawing plays. It's sensing momentum and resting it back. White's inertia became Indiana's epitaph. We let them. The scorching truth. Cunningham's post-game phrase resonates because it rejects victimhood. Asterisk, we let them outwork us. Underscore admits. Defensive laziness. Rotations arrived late because players didn't communicate. Offensive apathy. Cutters went through motions instead of sprinting. Collective resignation. No one demanded change when the system failed. Meanwhile, White described the loss as part of our growth process, a tone-deaf response when playoffs hang by a thread. Players fought through exhaustion. Mitchell played 38 minutes, Boston 36, while coaching offered no lifelines. Bibby sat. Adjustments vanished. Accountability dodged. That's why this loss stings more than others. The roster showed heart, but leadership didn't match it. This final sequence wasn't just a bad possession. It was a flashing warning sign for Indiana's playoff hopes. If coaching can't adapt. Mitchell's prime years waste in hero ball. Boston's dominance gets neutered by double teams. Cunningham's leadership gets drowned in excuses. The Fever stand at a crossroads, double down on failing systems, or demand accountability. Sophie Cunningham already chose her side. Now it's your turn. If you're furious about wasted effort, smash that like button. Every like shows these athletes their fight matters. For more unfiltered sports analysis, exposing coaching truths, mainstream channel subscribe and hit notifications. The next video reveals 3 other NBA coaches making identical rotational blunders, and it's costing teams championships. You won't want to miss this.